What's up guys, and welcome to another vlog or day here in Vegas. I'm currently on my way to the Wynn because we're gonna play the day 1D today of the WPT Prime $1,100 buy-in. Starts in 50 minutes, so I'm early, gonna grab some food, and yeah, let's just run good and see you guys at the tables. We start 5-handed in the first blind level, 100, 200. Every player starts with 40k in chips, and we look down at ace-9 of diamonds from under the gun and we open to 500 in our first hand. Button makes the call, and so does the big blind, and go 3-ways to a flop of ace-9, 7 rainbow. We totally smash our first flop here in the biggest tournament I probably ever played in my life, with over 1 million for first place. Big blind checks to me and I decide to c-bet for 700. Button decides to make the call and big blind gets out of the way on a very good board for my under the gun open range. The turn is the 10 of diamonds and I see no point in slowing down because this should always improve his range. For example, hands like 10-8 make second pair with an open ender. Jack-9 for example has third pair and a gutter as well, so all those type of hands still pay off another bet, so I decide to bet 2200. The button tanks for a little bit and then folds his cards, and it's always nice to win your first pot, especially in a meaningful tournament like this. Still 5-handed, cutoff opens to 600 and I decide to 3-bet ace-10 of diamonds to 2500 out of the small blind. She checks her cards very long and then 4-bets to 6200. This is already very uncomfortable, but we are very deep and I'm not gonna shy away to battle, so I make the call and we go heads up in a 4-bet pot out of position to a flop of ace-9, 5 with 2 hearts. I check and she's gonna continue for 4200, which is roughly a third of the pot. Not concerned yet, since she should c-bet her whole range in a 4-bet pot on that board, but if we see further aggression on that turn, we might be in trouble here. I obviously make the call and we go to a turn which is the jack of spades. I check again out of position and now she quickly checks back. Pretty sure that I have the best hand now and the river is the 8 of spades. She maybe has hands like queens or kings in this spot and I want to get called by them, so I decide to go small here and bet for 7k, but she checks her cards again and then folds pretty quick. I peel pocket fives in the big blind. Under the gun limps in, low jack raises to 700, small blind decides to call and I obviously call as well, and the limper calls too, and we go 4-ways to a flop which is 5, 6, 10 with 2 spades. We absolutely smash it multi-way again and there is no better start I could have hoped for in this tournament. Music to my ears as the low jack also continues betting for 1.1k, and now the small blind raises to 3.1k and I'm sitting here with bottom set. If somebody has 6s or the low jack 10s, then so be it, you're getting all my money, but I want to put in as much money as I can, so I call 3-bet the flop to 9.5k. The limper and the low jack fold and now it's back to the small blind which is deep into the tank. He checks his cards twice and then unfortunately folds. We might got owned here and he folded the 10, but I think that's still the play because I unblock all the flush draws, open enders as well, and if an overcut comes it probably kills my action as well if he had a 10, so a little bit unlucky that we don't get action here. I raise to 700 with ace queen and only the big blind defense, and we go to a flop of king jack 3 all clubs. Another huge flop for my hand with the gutter and the second nut flush draw. He checks and I bet 600 without checking his cards. He quickly makes the call, so I'm certain he at least has one club. The turn of course is the best card in the deck again with the ace of clubs and we make the nuts. And we definitely run hot in the early stages. He checks again and I feel like I want to get sneaky here because I could for example have a king or a jack without a club and all those hands would hate that turn, so I check back. The river is the 5 of clubs and he immediately looks at his chips and bets 1200. I obviously have to raise now, but in my eyes I can't go too big since he simply cannot have that many strong hands here, so I raise to 5.4k and maybe 20 seconds go by, and although I think this is really hard in that spot to get paid, he sticks in the call and we win another nice pot. I have 2 starting stacks in this tournament right now and I'm just happy that I had a good start. The next hand I looked down at aces and I couldn't believe my eyes here. I open to 700 from under the gun +1 and button and big blind both make the call and we go to a flop of 4, 5, 8 rainbow. I could check here since this is not the best flop for my opening range, but I decide to against it and bet 1800. It's now on the button and he makes the call and the big blind gets out of the way. The turn is the king of spades, so there is a possible flush draw now, but I also have the ace of spades. This turn is a card I barrel a lot, so I put out a chunky bet of 7k. The button asks the dealer how much it is again and then calls. So we go to a river which is the queen of spades. It's obviously not the cleanest river and we're up against an action player, so this time I really don't know what to do here on this river. I was unsure which hands would pay off another bet and which ones would bluff, so I just decided to check and he quickly checks it back and we win, so yeah, we might have missed another value bet here. In the next hand, I unfortunately only have a screenshot since I was still writing notes from the ace's hand. And yeah, we peel ace-jack offsuit in the next shuffle. Under the gun opens to 1k at blinds being 200, 400. I decide to just call, and so does the button and the big blind. We go multi-way to a flop of jack 5-5 with 2 clubs. One by one, the blinds and the pre-flop raiser check to me, and with top pair, top kicker, I decide to bet for 1.8k. Both blinds didn't catch a piece and fold, but under the gun makes the call. Obviously, feeling pretty good about my hand, and I also think that I have the best hand here, as she probably peels with overs, medium pairs, or flush draws, and some jack X that she checks 4 ways. The turn now is the 7 of hearts. He checks again, and no need for me to slow down, so I bet big this time for 8k. Now the unexpected happens, and she surprisingly snap raises to 20k. From what I've seen so far, she's not the type of player that checks an overpair here 4 ways, even on a paired board. And I also realized that she only has 13k behind, so yeah, I go with my hand and jam. She calls, and we're in great shape as she tables jack 10 offsuit. The river is a total brick, and we scoop another nice all-in pot. In the next hand, under the gun opens over 3x to 1700. MP decides to call, and since under the gun is an action player, I call 8-6 of hearts in the small blind as well. Big blind is last to egg and squeezes to 7k now off a bigger stack as well. Under the gun, the action player quickly makes the call, MP decides to fold, and I should probably just fold here as well, out of position multi-way in a 3-bet pot, but I have a huge stack already, so let's get in there and I make the call as well. We see a flop of 10, 9, 3, 2 clubs, 1 heart. I check and probably just snap fold here since we don't have a lot going on besides a gutter ball and a backdoor flush draw. We are able to see another card for free though, as everyone checks, and the turn is the 8 of clubs, so we at least make a pair. I check again out of position, now the big blind bets 10k. Under the gun folds as he doesn't have anything, and my thought process here is most flush draws and also overpairs most of the time just c-bet this flop since it's a draw heavy board. There are also a lot of bad rivers for my specific hands, but my senses are on and I feel like we have the best hand here, so I call. The river is the 5 of hearts, which basically changed nothing. I check again, and now after some tanking, the big blind bets 17k. If he slow played an overpair here or maybe bets a 9 for thin value, then he will just get my money in that spot because his line doesn't make any sense. If it doesn't make any sense, I mostly end up calling most of the time, so I stick it in, and he indeed shows ace-jack for a busted open-ender on the turn. We bluff catch in the right spot against the right opponent, and we scoop another huge 3-bet pot. And under the gun opens to 1.1k, still at the same blind level, plus 1 calls, and with the ducks on the button, I happily make the call to set mine, and the big blind comes along as well. 4 ways again to a flop of 7, 10, 3 with 2 hearts. It gets checked all the way to me, and I obviously take a free card, and it's an amazing one with the deuce of spades. Big blind leads now for 3k, and under the gun makes it 6k. I'm still not afraid of him since this is the action player we want to get involved with, and something weird happens now. My plan was to just call 6k on the button in position, but I accidentally put out 8k, and the dealer mentioned that I have to raise, although I tell him I only wanted to call. The raise stands though, and I have to make it 9k. He calls the floor over to confirm, but he's right and it stands. To me, my play of course looks very weak, and now the big blind jams for 35.7k. Under the gun folds, and it's back on me now. I think he can still jam hands like 2 pair or combo draws, but I actually hate the spot, as you can hear in game and think out loud trying to get a read of the opponent.
I can fold. Set over set for real.
After a 2-minute tank, I come to the conclusion that my hand is way too strong to fold, so I stick it in, and he indeed has 7s. In the next blind level, I open pocket 10s to 1.5k after that cooler from middle position, cut off calls, and now the small blind jams for 6600, which is exactly 11 big blinds. I decide to rejam, and we're in great shape against pocket 7s again. Let's go to a run out. Then under the gun limps in for 600, which is the action player again. I raise to 2.6k from the small blind, and he quickly makes the call. We go heads up out of position to a flop of jack 10-2 with 2 hearts. I c-bet for 2k, and before I'm even able to put out my chips, he snap raises to 6k. It's a very draw heavy board, and against this specific player I want to play my kings fast here. I 3-bet the flop to 18k, signalizing him that it's go home time, but he doesn't jam and he doesn't fold. He makes the call with only around 20k behind. The turn is the king of spades, so we make top set, and since he only has 20.9k behind, I jam and I immediately get a sigh from him. He tanks forever, and the longer it takes, I'm actually regretting my jam here a little bit, because in game I thought he might only have a jack that couldn't call. After 2.5 minutes, someone calls the clock on him and he sigh folds. folds, but we see another nice pot coming towards us. He later said he folded pocket queens. I don't know if I can believe that, to be honest. Did he really on a limb call that hand pre-flop? And did he really only call on the flop with an overpair and then fold on the turn after he has second pair and an open ender? I don't know, but at the end of the day he folded and we win the pot. The upcoming hand is a very interesting one in my eyes, as I open ace-4 of hearts from under the gun to 1.5k. Middle position and button call, and big blind, which is young American pro, defends as well. The flop is ace 9-5 with 2 diamonds and 1 club. Big blind checks, and 4 ways with a weak ace. I decide to check as well, and so does middle position and button. Still 4 ways, the turn is the 8 of clubs and we now have a double flush draw board. The big blind leads very small now for 1.7k. I could raise here, but this time against a professional and 2 players behind, I decide to be a little bit more passive and just call. MP quickly folds and now it's back to the button and he just jams for 19.7k. Big blind quickly folds and now it's decision time for me. Again, I think I underwrapped my hand a lot here, and yes, he could have made 2 pair, which if that's the case we would still have outs, since I don't think he would check back top pair on the flop in this spot. But since it's a double flush draw board, there are hella combo draws he could still shove as well that we beat with only 1 more card to come, so I actually think I have a very easy call here. We stick it in and he exactly has one of those hands with jack 10 of clubs that turned the world, and yeah, let's just hope for a brick on the river. In the next hand, under the gun opens to 2.4k and we look down at the next premium, which is pocket queens. Since he only has a little bit behind, I decide to 3-bet small here to 7k in position. Under the gun makes the call, leaving only 5.2k behind, which you don't see very often. We go heads up, non all in to a flop of 10-9 deuce with 2 spades, and now he just lead jams. And of course I snap call and he tables king jack of diamonds, so we only need to fade 6 outs. After winning another all-in pot, we look down at ace-king, all in the same blind level as I open this time from under the gun +1. MP decides to 3-bet to 7k, it's the same guy who tried to bluff me with ace-jack. It gets back to me as everyone folds, and knowing he can have light 3-bets, I decide to 4-bet 3x to 21k. He doesn't even think 2 seconds and snap calls, and we go to a flop of 5, 6, 10 with 2 clubs. I totally whiffed that board and probably should just check out of position, but I do decide to c-bet small, as you should do most of the time in a 4-bet pot. I decide to c-bet for 10.3k, and as I place the bet, he immediately looks at his chips seconds later, which at least to me in that spot was a sign of strength, so he of course calls, and if I don't see a face cut on the turn, I probably just give up. This time we don't get help on the turn as the dealer puts down the 5 of hearts. At this point I'm just done putting money into the middle and decide to check. I thought I would see a lot of small bets for protection here, but he surprisingly checks back and the hand gets my attention again. The river is a queen and now I have a decision to make. Do I want to bluff this card on the river or just try to get to showdown? In the end I think this card improves his hands as well, so I check and he very quickly bets 50k. It's a huge bet compared to the size of the pot. After checking back turn, I at least give it a thought to call down with ace high, best kicker here, because it looks like queen x, ace 5 or just random bluffs that floated the flop. Still can't do much here and just fold and move on. You can't win every hand in this level. In the next hand we play pocket kings again. +1, the young American pro and by far the best player at the table, min raises to 3k. I tried to stay away from heads up pots with him, but with this premium I of course 3-bet to 9.2k. He's also playing a huge stack and makes the call ready to battle. We go to a flop in position of 6, 8, 9 rainbow. It might sound weird, but against an opponent who can put you in really tough spots, I already don't like the flop that much. He checks, and especially on the rainbow board I think it's fine to pot control also your strong hands sometimes, so I decide to check back. The turn is a beautiful deuce of clubs and he checks again. Now I definitely have the green light to go for value and I bet 7k. He always thinks very long, stares you down, trying to make you feel uncomfortable, and then finally makes the call. Loving my hand a lot still, and we go to a river, which is the jack of hearts. Not my favorite card in the deck because he completes some 2-pair combinations like jack 8, jack 9 suited, but he checks again. I do decide on a very small sizing of 5.2k for multiple reasons. To get called by 8x or 9x hands because I think he's not that strong here, and also to induce a bluff already. Making up my mind, I basically call any sizing, and if he got there with jack 8 or jack 9 for example, then he just deserves it. You could really see that he was very surprised about that sizing on the river and he tanked forever, guys. I also think he thought about raising and then changed his mind thinking he has enough showdown value, and then he did stick in the call. I obviously tabled my hand and we win, so let me know guys in the comments what you think about that hand. In the last hand before dinner break we looked down at king 10 offsuit. +1 raises to 3.5k, already with my mind at an amazing dinner, which I'm gonna show you in a second, but I make the call on the button and we go to a beautiful flop of king 4 rainbow. He's out of position and first to act, and he decides to check, which is kinda sad, but I still think I can get called by ace high hands and pocket pairs, so I bet very small for 3k. At least we get some kind of action as he calls, and the turn is the queen of spades. He checks again to me, and I don't think I can get 3 streets here since he doesn't look that strong, so I decide to get sneaky and check behind. The river is the 6 of hearts now, and I'm very surprised to see him bet 12.5k now. In theory, I think my hand should always raise, even though I only have a 10 kicker, but what hands am I really getting called here? Of course, some queen x hands pay off a raise that don't believe me, but most of the time he's just bluffing in this spot, as the line in my eyes makes no sense again. My head screams raise, but I don't know, I just don't think it accomplishes much here, so I just call and he tables 6s for a river board, and we got very unlucky in this one, but I'm glad I found the just call. Still sitting at a chunky stack of 135k, but it's time for some amazing food now. Shout out to Big Aaron and thank you very much for the food again. Alright guys, we have dinner break now. We're at 151k, so well over 100 big blinds. Very nice, but I gotta show you the dessert stuff here is insane. After having a great dinner with some friends, we get right back into the mix as we look down at ace queen offsuit. Cutoff opens to 5k and I decide to get aggressive with that hand on the button and 3-bet to 12.5k. Probably a little bit too small, but yeah, here we are as he makes the call and we go to a dry flop of deuce 9-9. Should be ahead of some calling hands and still have equity against pairs, so I just used the same sizing in for around 1/4 of the pot and c-bet for 7.5k. He must have a hand though as he sticks around and it turns the 4 of clubs. Obviously not the card I wanted to see, but he checks again and now it's decision time for me again. He has around the pot size left behind and I'm just trying to figure out what hands I could get to fold in this spot if I go for it. He was a very nitty player and in game I was certain that I at least could make him fold hands like 5s through 8s. Overpairs are obviously never folding, but I'm representing those as well, so I decided to go for it and not take a free card. So I put him to the test and jam. He immediately shakes his head and doesn't look happy at all, stares at me multiple times trying to get the read. Guys, this is still a very big buy-in for me and it was pretty clear that I don't have the best hand here and so much adrenaline went through my body just hoping for him to fold. After an insanely long tank, he sticks it in with pocket 10s, which, I don't know, just never folds in a tournament like this and we need to hit our 6 outs on the river. After not getting there on the river, we peel 4-6 offsuit in the big blind. Under the gun opens and with around 45 bigs, 4-6 off is probably one of the worst hands to defend here, but it definitely falls into the category of defending. So I make the call and we go heads up out of position to a flop of 7-5 king with 2 hearts and 1 diamond. I check and he quickly decides to c-bet for 4,000. Obviously never folding an open ender with 6 high at the moment, but I decide to take the more aggressive route and check raise small to 10.5k. Trying to get his total airballs to fold that have some equity and ace highs of course with no heart in his hand, but he makes the call. The turn is the 10 of clubs and I'm already in a kinda dicey spot here. After check raising the flop and getting called, to be honest I hate all the options I have here. Looking at his range, I think it comes down to a lot of flush draws and top pairs that won't fold to a turn bet, but on the other hand, checking and then facing the bet with outs for sure and still having 6 high at the moment also feels bad. So I decide to bet 15k and it's back on him. This time he thinks a little bit longer but eventually makes the call. Probably jamming on a hard river as a bluff to represent the flush, but the river bails me out with an 8. I tank a little bit and then jam for 51.5k. He looks disgusted and tells me that he has a king and I'm praying for a call right now. The poker gods are on my side at least on this hand and he sticks in the call with king jack offsuit.
Well, straight.
It has to show it's all in.
And as you can hear, some people definitely didn't put me on the hand I was turning over. Still at the same blind, I repeal beautiful queen jack suited from middle position. Under the gun opens and there's definitely arguments for 3-ing, but against an under gun open I just decide to call and the big blind defends as well and we go to a flop of 4-6 jack rainbow. Big blind checks and although the under the gun player shouldn't connect too often with this spot, he still bets for 5k. With top pair and a solid kicker I have an easy flat and the big blind gets out of the way. The turn is the 6 of spades and also brings in a possible flush draw. Under the gun again doesn't take the foot off the gas and bets for 12k now. His line already looks very strong to me, betting into 2 players on a jack high board and continues betting on a low card which also should favor me, so I put him towards good top pairs and over pairs at the moment. Still, with top pair I can't go anywhere yet, so I make the call and we see the 10 of diamonds on the river. Hoping to see a jack from my opponent, which doesn't happen as he assembles another bet of 31k. Although I'm getting a good price with my top pair here, I just think my hand is not good. Opens under the gun, goes 3 streets, if he doesn't have it so be it, but I just think I don't have the best hand here, so I make a very disciplined fold in my eyes and move on. Unfortunately we will never see what the opponent had. In the next hand, middle position opens, which is by far the best player at the table, and I look down at ace-10 offsuit right next to him from the hijack. Again a hand where I could get a little bit more aggressive and 3-bet, but I decided to go the more passive route again and just call, and I let another opponent in again because the small blind calls as well. 3-raise to a flop of 8 jack 8 rainbow. The young American pro likes to play small blind and c-bets for 5k. Even with a player behind, I think my hand could still be good at least some portion of the time, so I stick in the call. The small blind folds and we go heads up in position to a turn, which is the 5 of hearts. He now checks his option and I actually feel pretty good about my hand right now. I have enough showdown value, so I check behind. The river is an interesting one with the king of hearts. With 3 hearts on the board, he looks at me and then bets for 16k. A lot of thoughts are running through my head right now, but I just want to make the right decision here. I definitely rule out a flush, so it's either a king or my hand should be good since my range is very capped too, and it looks like I just have a small pocket pad. I didn't want to fold the flop, but is now in a tough spot. I go with my gut this time and call, and he tables ace-10 for the same hand. We definitely get a laugh from him this time. In the next hand, I rise to 6k from under the gun plus 2 with ace-king offsuit, and it folds all the way back to the big blind. He counts out his chips again and then jams for not even 10 big blinds. Easy snap call with my hand and we're flipping against pocket 7. Let's go to the races. We're now sitting at only 22 big blinds after defending the blinds one more time last orbit and look down at ace-jack offsuit from under the gun. 1100 are left in our flight and 493 make the money for day 2. I open to 8k in a short stack who just spot in right before late reg was ending jams for 50k. I tank for a little bit, but I can never fold my hand here, so I call and we're flipping again against 6s. We definitely need to win that one if we want to make it to day 2. Now very short with only 6 big blinds after defending another big blind, we have to decide if we want to take that spot. Middle position shorty jams, cutoff calls as well with a short stack, and I look down at king jack offsuit. I still think it's a good spot for my hand and I either triple up or I die here, but we definitely need help as the opponents show 9s and king queen suited.
Eventually, so don't be scared. I gotta see him eventually, so let's go. Diamond. Diamond. Diamond.